Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, December 18th, 2023. I am Dave Biddle. Very happy to be joined by Dan Rubin. Exactly 1 week from Christmas and a lot to get into. Monday morning quarterbacking is what we're going to do a lot on this show. We're also going to talk, obviously, some recruiting, portal, all that. But I want to get into heavy dose of quarterbacking, looking at Devin Brown in the Cotton Bowl, what we expect to happen next year at quarterback for Ohio State. Kyle McCord ending up at Syracuse. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you about our great sponsor, Manscaped. Dan Rubin won the coin flip. He has elected to defer to the second half, so I get the pleasure of telling you about Manscaped and a great deal these guys have. Santa Baby, the season for a fresh cut is finally here with the sponsors of today's show, Manscaped. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming have just launched their 5th generation performance package to help you avoid another silent night in the bedroom this year. Take care of your special snowflake with the Lawn Mower 5.0 Ultra and watch your South Pole shine like never before. Get the best stocking stuffer of all by going to manscaped.com and using the code Bucknuts for 20% off plus free shipping. Mrs. Claus will thank you. Manscaped is a one-stop shop for all your holiday needs. They have the perfect gift in the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, which includes loads of perfect stocking stuffers. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code Bucknuts at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code Bucknuts. Say ho, ho, ho to a well-groomed mistletoe with Manscaped. There you go. Bam. All right. I tell you what, they have a bunch of good products. Like they even have above the waist products. I like the Handyman. People that think we don't actually have this stuff, like bam, Manscaped, baby. All right, let's get to it. Now I want to mostly talk about Ohio State's quarterbacks, but I got to start off talking about Kyle McCord. When you saw he landed at Syracuse, what was your reaction, Dan Rubin?
Honestly, that he didn't want to compete with Dylan Raiola at Nebraska. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that was my thought, just because not on the inside for this one, but just reading the tea leaves or getting what we get from the people we talk to. I mean, he's following the Tommy DeVito game plan here. I think DeVito spent some time at Syracuse, Illinois.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and this is going to be my theme on the transfer portal and really everything in general here right now, is that we are just in uncharted waters. I'm trying not to make any serious determination on any roster moves or anything till everything kind of filters out at the end. It's a new schedule in terms of when people can leave and when they stay. In terms of Kyle in particular, it's actually probably a good move for him. I imagine they're going to, let him spread his wings there. Syracuse, it's not necessarily a step down in terms of, like you're saying, Power 5, but when people say Syracuse, they think Derek Coleman. They don't think, right. Quarterback. So, and I get that, but I think he'll get a chance to play there, probably be the man and throw up some great numbers. I know the new coach is a Georgia assistant coach import, and you can see they've gotten some impressive guys on their staff. And Dave, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a time when Syracuse was actually pretty good way back in the day with them. Bill McPherson and Don McPherson were the quarterback coach combo. I'm not sure if I transposed that, but no, it's a good move for him. And I'll bet you they're very happy at Syracuse to get him. What's funny is, here at Ohio State, we're like, yada, yada. But up there, they're like, we got a quarterback from Ohio State. So it's kind of a matter of perspective at this point. So I wish Kyle the best of luck.
Yeah, I wish him the best of luck too. He's a good young man. He's a hardworking kid, high character kid, never been in trouble. And I think we can have a real discussion about this, and I think this isn't trashing the kid. I think it does validate the idea that he was not Ohio State material. If this pulled like a Jamo, for example, or a Joe Burrow, it's like transferred from Ohio State to an LSU or transferred from Ohio State to an Alabama or fill in the blank, not even necessarily those schools. For him to transfer from Ohio State to Syracuse, And Dan, this isn't even the Syracuse you and I grew up watching. Like, it was like a big deal in 1992 when Ohio State went to the Carrier Dome and beat Syracuse in Eddie George's freshman year. Eddie George's, coming out party, obviously, with 3 touchdowns in that game with Kirk Herbstreit as the starting quarterback. Syracuse had beaten Ohio State in a bowl game a couple years before then. Donovan McNabb, Marvin Harrison, those guys, Marvin Harrison Sr. obviously went. That ain't Syracuse anymore, man. That's not Syracuse anymore. So even then, Syracuse wasn't like, a primo program. So he's like going to from Ohio State to a tier 3 program. I don't even put him in tier 2. So it kind of validates, in my opinion, it validates the idea that Kyle McCord should not have been Ohio State's starting quarterback. He wasn't wasn't good enough for Ohio State.
I'm not sure if you take that tack, that's not really a super arguable point at this juncture. I mean, you've got the anecdotal evidence, you've got the lineage. Whether, we talk about how it's an attractive job to be the quarterback here because of the lineage and the guys who have come through and gone to the Heisman ceremony, but it's also a lot of pressure and it's a high standard. You can't just throw anybody in there. So, very interesting. I mean, quarterback has become a different job in the modern era when you look at the transfer portal. And I don't have the exact number. I think something like 60% of the starting quarterbacks among the Power 5 schools last year were transfers. It's going to be even worse this year when you look at the way the portal is set up. So kind of reserving judgment on everything when it comes to quarterback, but it does feel like Kyle has maybe found his level.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, and the Nebraska thing, I'm sure, his dad's involved in a lot of this stuff. I don't put that. A lot of people are like, oh, here Kyle is afraid of competition. I don't know. What if Nebraska told him they weren't going to bring in anybody, and then they bring in Raiola, and maybe his dad felt like they were live? No, I'm just spitballing. I don't know if this happened. I don't put that on Kyle. And it feels like Syracuse is a good fit for him, that this young coach that you mentioned they got from Georgia, he was the Georgia DB coach, this year and last year. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. It's a good fit for Kyle. It's a good fit for both sides. I'm sure Syracuse fans are like, this is awesome. Look at his stats. We'll see what happens. All right, let's get to Devin Brown. I'm just excited to see Devin Brown in the Cotton Bowl, and they've pretty much made it official. I mean, it's like, it's like 99.9% he's going to start the game, maybe 100% unless he gets injured. So, and I loved when he came out last week for interviews. You can just see how he just is dripping with charisma. And I went back and watched his high school film. Again, his senior year is playing against competition in Utah. But, man, this kid, people that think this kid can't throw the ball, please watch his high school film, not just the highlights. Watch the extended version. He's more than just a playmaker, and he can make plays. It's been such a small sample size this year, Dan, and I'm really curious to see how he performed. It makes the Cotton Bowl exponentially more interesting from my vantage point that Devin Brown's going to – we're going to know what we have. Maybe not 100%, but we'll have it because this is a good Missouri defense. We'll have a good idea of what we have in Devin Brown after this game, and it just makes it a lot more intriguing.
Dave, I said this on Thursday. I think, generally speaking, the Bucknutters don't believe in Devin Brown because they know, and I'm air quoting this, that Kyle McCord beat out Devin Brown. Therefore, Devin Brown cannot be good enough to hold the standard. We just had a whole segment on the guy that beat him out not being to the level of, Ohio State. They're human beings, and things just don't work that linear with humans. There's a lot of stuff that could have gone on behind the scenes. I think we at least need to reserve judgment here and let the kid go out and play a full game with a full game plan, not as the Wildcat quarterback with a month of Ryan Day game planning, which is still lethal as much as people don't want to believe that from an offensive perspective. And let's just see how it goes. He may be better. Now, here's what I love about Bucknuts. If he is better, we are going to have some crazy-ass threads about wasting this past season with him over Kyle McCord. Good Lord, I may have to take a week off from that. But
better than the whole season, right, Dan?
It's going to be true factors. which you were threatening to do as I consult with human
It
resources.
wasn't
But
a threat. I was just asking, which even at
the calls in the middle of the night and the raised voice was a little much, but I say threatening maybe.
Even in my early Christmas parties on my side of the family, we had one a week and a half ago. That was a big topic of conversation amongst amongst my side of the family. They thought that was pretty funny, and I was like, funny? I was totally serious.
Yeah,
I wasn't really serious, but I digress.
Right.
Go ahead.
No. So, and then we're going to get to discuss Lincoln Kienholz as well, but I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt. And I know there's some people who don't believe that. That's fine. When you've created a standard like Ohio State has at quarterback, you can't go a whole season at quarterback and have that really be the determining factor in a lot of people's minds as to why you weren't the team you should have been, considering in retrospect, you had the ball with a chance to win on the road at the number one team, air quotes again. So it's going to be very, very interesting, and I'm optimistic. Like you said, Devin Brown was not some MAC quarterback they picked up late in the process to fill a hole. He's very highly rated. Like you said, his senior year was not against the stiffest of comp, but he's an Elite 11 kid. And like you said, also, from a charisma perspective, he is a different breed of cat. Kyle is a much more reserved dude. You talked about how we've met them. Even in the group settings, Kyle has a little bit of a buzz to him, a little something, where Kyle's more
Devin does.
Wallflower might be a stretch, but he's just not effervescent. You like Wallflower, but
Wallflower is a good term for it. That's perfect.
I know.
When we were at that private party, before the foundation's event, he absolutely was a wallflower at the the party before the party.
Well, especially compared to the other guys, Dave.
Over there, as I said, and I told you, we talked about it, and you agreed. Like, I'm like, damn, man, that doesn't carry himself like the Ohio State quarterback, is what I remember saying. And you and me and Mr. Bucknuts were all talking about it. I don't know.
It's that, and Dave, so many of the guys on the team are like the complete package of, like the guy you meet in high school who's bigger, stronger, faster than you, had a better grade, better looking girlfriend, family was great and stuff. Most of the guys in Ohio State you talk to are those kinds of guys.
Those are the guys.
Look you right in the eye and you're like, dude, this guy's 18. I remember Carnell Tate in person. I was like,
yes,
he hurt my own self-confidence.
That was at the same event. Remember, that was at the same event. Yeah.
And that hurts because, like we're saying, keep in mind, this is not charisma among average people. It's charisma among the alphas of all the alphas. You got to be the real deal, Holyfield. You got to be authentic. You can't fake it. Some of those videos that they showed that got out didn't, like the motivational videos, just didn't feel. So I get it. And I do think that Brown and Kienholz have that little something. Kienholz is literally a living, now I get it to Dakota, but he's literally a living legend in that state. So he's used to being the focus of attention and having to talk and stuff like that. So I don't want to take shots at Kyle. It's not, that's a personality thing. And look, I probably would have been intimidated in that big group. You're talking about the alphas of the alphas. So, but you've said that you have said that, and you've been going back to it all year. And I kind of tried to deny it in the hopes that we were going to win more games. And you were right, and I was wrong.
I was hoping I was going to be wrong. I've never seen an Ohio State quarterback that was successful carry himself like that. It reminded me a little bit of Todd Beckman.
Yep.
Although Todd would actually, oddly, I can't say command a room better, wasn't maybe even that nervous, but it reminded me a lot of Todd Beckman. Anyway, let's move on. Great question here from my guy. Love this. Tom Brenneman. Good to see Tom checking in. And this is a question. Awesome. I love this question. Tom Brenneman, can the Bucs really go into next season with current quarterbacks and Noland? I wanted to get to this anyway. Tom, thanks for the question. Tom, big Buckeye fan. All right, let's get to it. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think there's no doubt they're going to bring in a quarterback from the portal at some point because Day wants 4 scholarship quarterbacks. You're going to have Devin Brown, Lincoln Kienholz, Aaron Noland, who's going to enroll early in January, which is good. My question, Dan Rubin, is that going to be a Tristan Gebbia type, a Chugginoff type, one of those, just to add depth, just to get another scholarship quarterback, a Gunnar Hoke, or are they going to actually try and get somebody that can help? Although the list is running out, and does it depend on how Devin Brown looks in the Cotton Bowl?
What jumps out to me about that question is chugging off will be an excellent trivia question at some point. That just jumped back into my brain there. Uncharted waters, Dave. Let's say Devin Brown goes out and kills it. Obviously, that would make things a lot easier. I also think people are jumping the gun in terms of the transfer portal schedule here. There are, like, the playoff teams, for example. You can hop in the portal and go through mid-January. The idea that if you don't have a transfer portal quarterback on the team before the game, I think there's going to be a mass exodus again after these bowl games. So as of right now, I would go Gebbia. But I'm somewhat guessing just because anyone who says they know what Devin Brown is going to play like or Lincoln Kienholz is going to play like that hasn't been in practice daily doesn't really know. And even those people don't really know. Let's be honest. Right. They haven't seen it for real.
Right.
On in Jerry world, you know what I'm saying? And with every Missouri fan known to earth in the stands and a lot of Ohio State fans. So I think so much of it's just uncharted waters. I would be very surprised, however, at this point, if they go out and get one of the names that everyone has latched on to in terms of, the Cam Wards of the world. I just don't think that's going to happen, largely because I don't think they think Cam Ward is that much better than what they have, if they do. And it would take a ton of money. So that doesn't strike me as something that's likely. And if they were going to do that, why didn't they do that just at the very beginning anyway?
Yeah, I've changed my tune just because, situations change. When McCord first announced that early Monday morning, I was doing show prep. It was like 6:30 a.m. And frankly, I normally wouldn't be up that early, but I have to get up to help my wife's a teacher, and she leaves at like some ungodly hour, so I have to help get my daughters to school. So I happened to be up when word broke that morning, and I had to go on CBS HQ. You and I did a show, and I'm thinking they must have a quarterback lined up in the portal that he's bringing in to be that QB1 for a year. But I don't think that's the case anymore. I think he believes in Devin Brown. And he believes Lincoln Kienholz. If something does go wrong with Devin Brown, he believes in Lincoln Kienholz. That's my gut feeling. Then you have Aaron Noland as a true freshman. I think it's a stretch to think he's going to start as a true freshman, but at least he's enrolling early. At least he played against really good competition in Georgia. I love that about him, and I do think they're going to bring in somebody for depth. So I've gone from thinking he's going to bring in somebody challenge or be that QB1 to he's probably just going to bring in somebody for depth. So I think you're on the money with that. All right, we're going to talk comings and goings, importers, exporters, and the portal and recruiting in just a moment. But Dan wants to tell you about our other sponsor on today's show, nuts.com. Dan Rubin, the floor is yours.
Once again, Dave, thank you for these nuts. Different nuts. Kids, have you ever been to Willy Wonka's Candy Factory? Well, since that's not exactly possible, let me introduce you to the online version of that, nuts.com. In addition to an amazing selection of nuts, they have tons of classic candies like butterscotch, fudge, and licorice. At the grocery store, you can get pecans. Dave, is it pecans or pecans?
I say pecan, I think.
I've been rotating.
Pecan. Tomato. Though I don't like the tomato thing because who says tomato? I guess
nobody.
People in England?
It's potato. Let's go with pecan.
No one says potato. No one says potato.
No one does. But you don't want bourbon pecans, whatever. Sweet and spicy pecans, pecan brittle, or butter toffee pecans.
Or biddle.
I feel like pecans. Anyway, if you're eager to try these, head to nuts.com to see the hundreds of different varieties of nuts they offer. Nuts.com is your one-stop shop for freshly roasted nuts, dried fruits, sweets, pantry staples like specialty flours, and more. Their wide selection means there's something for everyone. Right now, Nuts.com is offering new customers a free gift with purchase and free shipping on orders of $29 or more, at Nuts.com/Bucknuts. So go check out all the delicious options at Nuts.com/Bucknuts. You'll receive a free gift and free shipping when you spend $29 or more. That's nuts.com/Bucknuts.
There we have it.
Bring it.
All right. Well, so how worried should people be that there's going to be multiple guys flip from Ohio State to another program? Maybe smoke, no fire. What do the people need to know, Mr. Rubin?
Okay, the Jeremiah Smith deal. I think everyone is well versed. Florida State and Miami making a late run. Brian Hartline told Dave and I in this exact forum here that if he was here, Jeremiah Smith would be here. And who am I to disagree with Brian Hartline? Especially when he said there was a giant brawl in the locker room and we asked who would emerge among the team. He said me, which is still one of the things I remember most about this football season for some reason. Anyway.
He lacks confidence.
Jeremiah, I'm sorry?
I said Brian Hartline lacks confidence and always has.
Not at all. Speaking of alphas. The really interesting one I think everyone's referring to is Edric Houston, defensive tackle from Buford in Georgia. Long been committed to Larry Johnson in particular. He visited Clemson on Friday and then, Alabama this weekend. The word on the street is the people telling him that Larry Johnson could be out or weighing on his mind, and he wanted to make sure his options are cleared. Ohio State has made it clear to him that Larry Johnson will be here. But it seems like I feel like we've gone through this with Larry every offseason since he got here. If you want to write a term paper, I don't want to get into that. So I expect education to be part of the class. I mean, as long as Larry's here, same thing. I get people want to take their due diligence at the end. And keep in mind, you have to understand the ground beneath us has changed to some extent with NIL. People taking these last visits and stuff when we used to just think, oh, he was going there because of this or that. Now we really don't know for sure why people are taking these last-second visits. They could. Jeremiah McClellan, to me, is also very interesting. Wide receiver out of St. Louis. I know for a fact that there were people around McClellan when he was committing that told him Ohio State may be a bridge too far to cross. You won't get the ball. You're going to be the third or fourth receiver in this class, yada, yada. And he said, I want to compete against the best. I feel like I'll get there and be one of the best. I don't know if he's wavering. Oregon is making a late run. They've always been in it. And look, Oregon might as well be called Nike University. They are going to be a very attractive spot during the transfer portal era, and they already are. It's a very good program that's moving into the Big Ten. So if you're Jeremiah McClellan, you now get to play in front of your family when you wouldn't have possibly had not their schedule, afforded you that chance. So that's interesting. And then Jordan Lyle, the running back out of St. Thomas Aquinas, I think everyone expects to flip to Miami. I cannot get worked up about running backs who are not ranked in the top 20. To me, after that, I'm not dime a dozen is a real stretch, but I do think, Mayan Williams was the latest of late ads, headed to Iowa State and was fantastic. Running back is just not one of those positions I get too freaked out about. Not to mention you could probably go into the portal and get one at the last second from almost anywhere. Those are the guys you need to be worried about. Like I said, I do think Lyle flips. I think I could see McClellan flipping just because of reading. And Steve Wiltfong is very connected in the Midwest and has those vibes. But as long as Jeremiah Smith and Edric Houston show up in the class of those four, I think you can take it and run with it.
Yeah, and another thing about running back recruiting, as long as James Peoples stays in the class, which he will, I'm good. Right. I'm good. I like that. And I love that he playing against top competition in Texas. That's huge. And Buckeyes have done pretty well getting kids out of Texas. And when's the last time they had a really good running back? Carlos Hyde would be the last time they got a really good running back that turned out to be a really good running back at Ohio State from the state of Florida. You go back, Tressel's first recruiting class had Lydell Ross in it. He looked like he was going to be a star, and then he faded out. The Buckeyes really haven't landed other than Hyde. I'm probably leaving somebody out. There's
Who's the dude with the weed in the back seat that never got here?
What's that?
Who was the dude that got busted with the weed in the back seat and never got here?
Oh,
Or did he get here and transfer? I can't remember. That's a long way back. You remember who I'm talking
Sneed?
about?
Was that Brian Sneed?
No.
And
He got here.
It wasn't Mo Wells. I'm thinking about all these.
He was a smaller, faster back.
I guarantee you somebody in the comments. Yeah, Jamal.
We'll get it.
There you
Yeah.
go. I knew.
Jamal,
I knew. All I had to do, I'm like, oh, I just got to pull up. There you go. There you go.
For those of you at home, it's Jamal Berry.
My guy is he's responded 15 times. We got you. It's Jamal Berry. I know some people are a little bit behind. I get it.
That's
because
awesome.
Because of the YouTube ads.
That's great.
I get it. Some people are a little behind. We got you, man. We got you.
That's a great job by the crowd, by the way.
I'm sitting there pondering. I'm like, oh, let's check out the comments. Someone's got this. So I want to go back to, well, yeah, James Peoples, love him. He's going to sign with the Buckeyes this week. All right, I want to get back. We're going to get back to that and, recruiting in just a minute. I do want to go back to this. HC4 Buckeye says, screw the it's a stretch old head belief. If Noland proves to be the best, then so be it. I completely agree with you. I was saying it's a stretch to think he's going to start as a true freshman. Like if we're making predictions right now, I'm certainly not predicting Noland's going to start as a true freshman. If you tell me he comes in January and then through spring ball and then camp proves he's the best quarterback, let's roll. Let's go. I mean, Braxton Miller was, he didn't put up stats because it was, the fickle year. Jim Bowman was, running that offense, but he went up to Ann Arbor as a true freshman and balled out, even though they barely lost that game. But the thing is, Braxton had to beat out Joe Boserman. Okay. Noland's going to have to beat out Devin Brown and Lincoln Kienholz. Whatever you think about those two young men, they ain't Boserman. I think Brown and Kienholz are going to surprise some people. So I wanted to go back to that. I agree with what HC4 Buckeye is saying. I'm not saying like, oh, he's a freshman, don't start him. Like, no. If he proves he's the best, so be it. All right, I want to get to this.
That would be shocking, though, Dave.
So our guy Mark Neal came up with a very such a perfect nickname, simple but perfect, called Urban Meyer the Spatula. And at first people are like, the spatula? Yeah, because he's always flipping. He's always flipping big-time recruits. Feels like it's gone the other way now. And some people might be, well, NIL is the reason. NIL is not going great. It's not going terrible for Ohio State. We've gotten into that. It can be better, and hopefully it will be. I don't know, man. What do you make of it? It's gone from Ohio State's the one flipping big-time recruits to it looks like big-time recruits are going to get flipped from Ohio State.
Well, I got to see them get flipped first.
That's true.
To get worried about it. I don't really have a great answer in terms of except for the fact that I'm not sure you can compare anybody on the recruiting. I mean, maybe Nick Saban. When you start comparing people to this guy behind me here holding the trophy, you're really asking for a little bit too much, in my opinion. Urban was a one of a kind, man. Like, let's put aside for a minute all the negativity that people like to bring up. When you talk about, and you can watch him now, the desire to win. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody speak out loud that I felt wanted to win more than Urban. Right. And that's just it. I don't know what else to say to that. And he's proven it. And Urban Meyer comes into your living room to recruit your kid. Your dad's intimidated. Okay. That's not the case for every coach who walks the earth. We talked about charisma on this show. You want to talk about presence and charisma in a group setting among alphas? Urban is the alpha of the alphas. So I'm not comparing anybody to Urban Meyer except Nick Saban. And you sometimes just got to be appreciative of the fact that you had him rather than comparing those who come behind him. That's my opinion. I don't even want to say what would happen if Ryan Day lost his job, who I would want to be the head coach again. Anyway, I just think it's tough. And so Day's calling card, which is why this has been a challenging season, is the ability to run an incredible offense and have a great quarterback in the stable at all times. People forget about this. There was no first-round quarterback picked in the Big Ten for like 20 years. And then Ohio State is on a run of first-round quarterbacks. There was a blip. I realize this. if you get rid of Day, you're going to have to go back to the drawing board when it comes having a great quarterback, even though it is really the baseline for success. And he has earned the benefit of the doubt there despite what happened this past year. Now, if the next quarterback isn't up to snuff, then we should get really fired up. And then I think you're going to see a change and the recruiting philosophy could change. But in terms of big flips, I have to think the big flips now are somewhat NIL motivated until I'm told otherwise. And let's just see the big flips happen and see it practically play out where Ohio State's actually lost someone that was going to come in and really contribute. Because that's another thing I think we've gotten away from. It's not easy to come in at Ohio State and get on the field. Guys who transfer, people don't transfer to Georgia or Alabama unless there's an obvious hole to play in, wide receiver or something like that. You're going to go to a depth chart that's packed. Guys tend to go down. There's been note that no one, the exodus at Georgia should show you like at Ohio State, the guys that go to these schools now, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, especially those three, they never think they're going to sit. A.J. Harris is already leaving Georgia. Those guys don't go to college to sit. Those are the studs of the studs. So those are the guys that are going to leave to play at a little bit smaller program. That's the best way to do it. That's just, it's not an exodus. These guys are good enough to play elsewhere. They're better than the guys on these other teams. So that's just going to play itself out. If you have more better players, you're going to have more teams coming after you now. That's just a fact. It's just incumbent upon these regimes, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, to replace them. Keep in mind, Georgia lost guys who were going to start in the bowl game. Now, it's not the bowl game they wanted to be in, but there were veteran players, their middle linebacker, a corner, left the program. That has not happened at Ohio State. The only guy who left, to my knowledge, that was and it wasn't even a guarantee, is Kyle. And if you even look at the guys, I'm sorry to go on too long here, Dave. If you even look at the guys they tried to bring in the transfer portal, if you look at Ohio State's depth chart, like, for example, on defense, who do we know for a fact is leaving, right? The two linebackers and Proctor. So who'd they bring in the portal to check out this weekend? Caleb Elam's arm from, and if I butchered that name, I apologize, from Cal, and a safety from UCLA. Because we don't really know who's leaving Ohio State yet. They got to play in the bowl game. So they're covering their bases, right? We know Marv's definitely leaving, but they're not going to bring in a transfer portal receiver here. Guy wouldn't even play. So the two spots they know they got to fill on defense depth-wise, linebacker and safety. They brought guys in. They're going to play the bowl game, see what they need to do, and then adjust. I think there's going to be a second window for these higher-level teams who are focusing on the bowl game when it comes to the transfer portal. So we're now having to preach patience to a people with the name Nuts in the title, and it's difficult, and I appreciate that because they pay my salary. But let's at least this first time through this aggressive transfer portal situation, because it wasn't even really like this last rotation. Let's just see how it peters out in the end. If at the end of this, the roster is talent deficient and we're going into next season worse than we are now, I'm all on board. You know, we can get our pitchforks out. But I think we at least deserve to go through the process and a full bowl game to see how it plays out when we've never seen it play out for anyone yet before.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a second wave, and that's when Ohio State's going to land their players in the portal. It's the same thing they did last year when they get Igbinosun after the playoff, and Igbinosun was a great get,
Perfect.
in my opinion.
Ideal.
Great get. And I thought Jahad Carter was a good get. He couldn't even see the field. But, you know,
different though, Dave.
Ended up being a good get. He didn't come till June. You know, Vic Cutler ended up being nothing, but, like, you know, he came after the bowl. So, like, the guys that are going to come in, Lorenzo Styles Jr., I could go on and on. The guys that came in last year came in after the bowl. So I think we will see a big wave when the second portal window opens as far as guys coming to Ohio State. They've already lost 14, but interestingly, none of those 14 were ranked. This is just according to The Athletic. It's just one publication, but I put this on Bucknuts Friday or whatever it was. The Athletic ranked the top 25 players in the portal, and McCord was still in it at the time and all those guys. 0 Ohio State guys are in the top 25. 0. So they're losing, some guys that they wish they, would have on the team, but it's not like they're losing any super studs or anything, man.
If his last name was easier to pronounce, I would use Igbinosun as like the template and say, oh, he's the next Igbinosun, and that you want a guy that comes from a big-time program, Ole Miss, who started as a freshman, hopefully a true freshman. That would be even better. And that has 2 years of eligibility left. Kamari Ramsey is the ideal transfer for us in this. He was supposed – like we had done Mark Porter did a scouting video on him. He was that close to committing to Ohio State. He chose Stanford and flipped to UCLA, but redshirt freshman who started and has 2 years of eligibility left from UCLA. Now that's a guy who come in here and play. Most guys can't get on the field here. Jahad Carter, like you said, was a stud at Syracuse. I believe he was maybe second team all ACC. Couldn't get on the field. So we got to go. This is like free agency in football, man. The best teams are not built through free agency in the NFL. They're built through the draft. And then you go and pick and choose the right spots after that. Teams built on free agency, that's a rickety foundation. You are built through the draft. So we need to be built through recruiting. And keep in mind, like I said, this is the beginning of the transfer portal era. We don't have enough data now to know that was wrong. Or too aggressive of an approach. I really do actually agree with Ohio State's approach. It's just going to take a season or two for it to show, I think.
Thank you, Brass Tacks, loyal viewer of the program. If you're watching on YouTube, like the show. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe to our channel. We appreciate that very much. Great stuff from Dan Rubin. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. Another big audience. Really appreciate that, guys. I know you have a lot of options out there. Appreciate you guys making the Bucknuts Morning 5 part of your daily routine Monday through Friday. Thanks again to Dan. Thanks to all of you. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.